Heed my call.
Welcome to the Iron Seas, everybody. We are doing a book review because on our Discord, I'm going to share that link in the chat. If you come to the show live, you can get the Discord link. And where we have a book club where we review books probably once a month, give or take. And this week, we read Red Rising.
Yeah, oh, wait. Sorry, there's something wrong here. Let me. There we go. All right, we're ready for review.
So we read Red Rising. We'll probably be finishing out the series. Hopefully, there'll be a new book this year. So that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to go through different parts of the book. So hopefully, you guys have read it. But we will have a spoiler-free section at the beginning for those who obviously don't want it spoiled, and then we'll continue from there. But I am Bat Sauce, and joined with me today is also down there, Christian.
Me, the ultimate kahuna. I was the only one before this stream. Actually, no, Justin and I were the only ones before the stream who had read the book previously. And this book series is one of my favorites, with book 2 being my favorite fiction book of all time. I'm very excited to be getting into this review. Justin.
Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Heavily Music, and I'm here to talk about this book with everybody else and you, and that's what I'm gonna do. Bill, how we doing?
I'm Bill. I'm doing all right, and I recall reading the book.
So Bill is a member on our Discord, and so anyone can join the book club to read along. But not only that, if you're in our Discord, you can also join us on the stream if you want to. So as an added benefit. But as that, let's just get into it, and I think let's just talk real quick. We'll go in thoughts going into the book. We'll start with you, Justin. What were your thoughts going into this?
I didn't really know what to expect. I thought overall, like on the whole, on Amazon it's a 4.6, and I think that's a pretty, maybe a little high for where I would put it, but the score makes sense.
No, that's fair.
All right, Bill, what about you?
I had no thoughts. I'm not even sure. I can't even remember why I decided to join in on this.
I think maybe because
it's a book.
Yeah,
I'll give this a read.
Oh, I like reading. All right. Well, for so I had decently higher expectations because Kahuna's mentioned he's already read the book. I think he's the only one of us that has read it before. And he's like, I love this book, and the second book is my favorite book of all time. So it's like, okay, the expectations are pretty dang high then. I'll also say Red Rising, and then he has a sickle as his weapon.
It sounds so communist when you put it that way.
It does.
I'm like,
this sounds communist, but it's not.
Right. I'm like, man, are you about to have us read this communist propaganda book? And I'm like,
I mean,
and then at first I'm like, okay, but what?
There may be a case to make where you could figure out a way to finagle it and have it fit.
Yeah, you could probably take some elements of that, but it's no way, shape, or form propaganda.
Right.
So that's where I was worried about, because there are books that do that with their messaging, and it's like, yeah, this is communism good, or whatever other ideology.
Hero had a hammer and sickle. He was such a strong man. Yeah.
Well, he didn't have the hammer. That was a big part.
True. He had a drill, not a hammer. He had a drill.
But Red Rising communist, right? Come on.
with basically a sickle as one of the main heroes weapon. Yeah, I could see it. Yeah, I understand your apprehension going in.
Yeah. All right, Kuhn, how'd you feel about it going in for your second, third read?
8th, 10th.
This is probably my 8th or 9th read of this book, if not higher. I read this book for the first time in 2016. This book got me back into reading when I hadn't read a single book all the way through in about 7 years. This is the book that made me get back into reading again. I had an old battered copy. It was barely holding together, and but that was disposed of, unfortunately. But I really, really liked this book. The book 1 of this series, it gets better and worse after you read the others. It's both things, and I'm curious if you guys will feel the same way moving forward. But I'm very excited to get into this review.
Absolutely. So let's go then straight into the spoiler-free review. And Again, I'm going to start with you, Justin. Just keep throwing it to you.
That's fine. Yeah, I think a fair score for this in terms of like I had some
We'll wait
major
for the score. We'll wait a little bit for the score.
Oh, I thought that's what you were meaning by the review.
No, just without spoiling it, talk about. Well, wait, did you do the summary?
Yeah, I got the summary here. We're ready to go. You want me to roll with that?
Yeah, let's do the summary first. My bad.
All right. So, book summary and info. This is Red Rising by Pierce Brown, released in 2014. Tells the story of Darrow, a low-caste Red forced to work as a miner on Mars. That means like a guy with a pickaxe. Although he was also like only 16,
Also a miner.
so
Yes.
he's a miner on Mars. That's right. Who discovers the truth about his society's oppressive hierarchy where the ruling gold class, I love gold, has enslaved all the Reds. Gold! Leading him to infiltrate their ranks through a dangerous deception to fight for justice and revolution, ultimately questioning the lengths one will go to achieve change by becoming the very enemy he seeks to destroy. $10 paperback over on Amazon, $5 on Kindle. This is actually book 1 of 6. This one happens to be 416 pages. That, gentlemen, is the rundown.
All right. One thing I'll say before we get into it any further. This book from first word written to published was 2 months.
That's so crazy to me.
Unbelievable.
Wait, what?
Yes. Unbelievable. 2 months from first written word to like publish ready. Yeah.
Did he already have like an outline though, or is this like I have a thought 2 months later the book exists?
What I heard was
no way.
That's what I'm saying.
That's
I'm
what
like,
I heard. That's
what?
what I heard.
If you wrote it in 2 months,
maybe
that's still really
there's
impressive,
something maybe I might be missing part of that. Maybe that was like just the first draft before it was submitted or before they said this publish it. But I believe that was correct. Either way, it was written in a very short time frame and adjusted to be more Hunger Games-ish, despite what people say.
Oh, is it Justin Moore to be? Yeah. I mean, so yeah, that's a big part of the like my review on that. And Justin mentioned it before I even got to it. It's like, yeah, this is highly like Hunger Games, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't say like that's not an insult. I think the Hunger Games are pretty decent books. I think the ideas behind Hunger Games are really strong. So in a book that is better, which I think this is better than the Hunger Games by far.
I agree.
Yeah, and so it's just like, yeah, I think that's a great thing that was added. Yeah, so it is a brutal book. This book doesn't hold its punches.
It's not for the faint of heart.
No,
it's like brutal things in your story. This is not it.
Yeah, unlike Hunger Games, I would not call this a young adult book. It's got some.
I mean, it's really just it's Hunger Games but better. Like, there's just too many similarities.
Like by the end of the series, like Katniss is not even married. Spoilers. The beginning of this book, main character already got a baller wife. That's how this book starts.
Wow, way to throw spoilers in the non-spoiler section. Not for this book, but but yeah, no. Yeah, it is very like there's a lot of psychological things that go into this with the because it's point of view character book again, very much like Hunger Games, but it does like dive into different types of things. Like, yeah, there's the whole class warfare, that's a big thing, but it's not done in the same way. Like we start to like find out that it's like there's other hardships with the goals, which the goals would be like the capital city for Hunger Games, and it's not as black and white as it is with Hunger Games. It's a lot more gray, I'd say, and that kind of diving into that gray is kind of where this book likes to do.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, and I will say the books become more nuanced with pretty much every single edition, and nuanced in a valuable way, not in the cheap way. It's like, oh, the story's so nuanced. My character doesn't fit like every other character in his, special place in society. So he doesn't, but it's not cheap. Everything is for a reason, even if you don't like it in this story, which I really, really appreciate.
That's good. So it's nuance without needing to talk about nuance and without needing to use the word unpack while discussing it. That's good.
Yes, that's unpack, dude. Unpack triggers me now, dude. I hate.
You need to circle back to this thought, Kahuna. That's another one.
I hate that, dude.
What did that?
Right there with you.
What did that?
What did what?
The circle back.
What did that?
Oh.
There was a the spokesperson, I think, started it, and then it just like caught on. But I don't know if that's where it came from. That's
A lot of leftists and bad creator types use that term. Let's circle back to this.
You got to circle back to the nuance and unpack it. You know, there's just so much to unpack. Let's just unpack that.
Well, a lot of people try to say like nuance as like an excuse rather than explaining it.
Yeah,
but you know, this is I'm saying nuance as in it's like no, this unpacks that, right? But yeah, Bill, tell us about how you felt about all this. What?
You just said the words. Anyway, Bill, go ahead.
Well, I mean, would it be a spoiler if I essentially gave my thoughts as that one sentence thing I said in the Discord about how this book can basically be summed up?
Yeah, you could, yeah, without as long as it's somewhat spoiler free, you could sum up this book. Yeah,
yeah.
I think it's spoiler free. The major spoiler happens that it would give happens in like the first 50 pages, so I'd say that's near the beginning enough. Dude's wife gets executed and he decides to make it everyone's problem.
I forgot that's what you said in the Discord. that is really in the beginning, though. All right, let's just jump into the spoiler.
Dude, it could be any dude, you know. It doesn't have to be the main dude.
Doesn't even
okay. All right, guys. From now on, spoiler discussion. I said plot details. That's a major plot detail.
Hold on.
Because the major plot details happen very early in the book.
It does happen very early. Yeah,
the catalyst for everything that follows. It's Darrow's whole motivation.
Yes, it is. All right. Yeah. So basically, he's a red, right? The societies are broken down by colors, and depending on what your color is,
it's a caste
what your
system that's also genetically reinforced.
Right. So the golds at the top, the reds are the miner, like they mine. And they just have a really crappy life and are oppressed by the golds and other even some of the reds, right? Because they have high reds, right? And again, they had similar thing in Hunger Games. But so the wife is not happy because you got the main character, he's married at a very young age. And he's all like, no, we just do our hard work and like everything's gonna be cool. And they're being told that basically they're on a mission to save society because like they're on the brink of an extinction, and them mining is going to make Mars livable. So they have to put in hard work in order to for the good of the people. And so like living in these hard conditions, they're worth it. And you just gotta follow in line, be obedient, and everything will be good. But the wife is not okay with this. She wants a better life for her family. She wants better for everything like that. So she gets in a bit of trouble, and they get punished by getting whipped. And due to that, she starts singing a song, which kind of, sort of, potentially starts triggering a revolution. Not yet. It's like basically a spark. But she's killed because of that. She's killed because she decided to sing a song. But that started to motivate the main character.
Yeah, it was done in hopes of motivating Darrow, the main perspective character of this book. And for the first 3 books, he is the only perspective that you read from. And so a big part of this series is a lot of your enjoyment, whether you will be able to read this series, is if you are able to identify with Darrow, or at least enjoy seeing things from his perspective. If you do not like the character of Darrow, there's 0% chance you will make it through more than one of these books in the first trilogy, in my opinion. There's just
absolutely.
so much of it hinges on people don't. That I've seen reviews. Some people say they don't. Oh, shush. No, I'm kidding.
He's not like I'm not like, yeah, me and Darrow, that's my boy, but he's not awful either. I'm like, okay, I kind of get what he's doing, and
He's
there
a
are
special boy.
there's moments where he's easy enough to follow. He's not. I think this is fair to say. He's not the kind of a what's the word? Not charming, a main character that really. What's the word?
He has strong motivation.
I don't know.
Yeah,
He moves the
the
plot.
word
He's a
for it.
mover and a shaker.
And
I
consult
find
the internet
his
to get this word.
constant hate on the higher colors to be very charming, actually.
Yeah,
My brain is not working. I almost
I mean,
had a
so
copy.
he is a character that, you know, they spent a good part of the beginning to build the motivation for the character. So, like right there, I think that was very extremely strong to latch that onto the main character of which you're following, and you're like, yeah, I understand his motivation. I'm with him.
It's a strong motivation, and you need it for this story. You need a really good reason for everything that's going to happen.
Yeah, it's because like basically what happens right after is they just like throw him to like the rebel group. Also, basically, he had so when they execute his wife, a big thing of their execution is the gravity's a little bit low on Mars.
Oh yeah,
it's
I
still
love that.
hanging.
This
So
is
they kill
world
them?
building, dude.
So they make a loved one pull on their feet, so they have to like kill them, and like
That
so
is-
he like they force him to kill his wife, so it's incredibly traumatic. But yeah, no, like he gets in line with the rebels, kind of pick him up, and they're like, "Hey, we're gonna make you be a gold, and you're gonna become like a general, and you're gonna be an inside guy." And he's
Did you guys expect
into
that to be the direction this went? Did you think they were going to turn him into the ultimate double agent of all time, basically?
No.
Honestly,
No.
I had no idea. Whenever
Like
they
I said-
took her out, I'm like, I don't know where this is going. Like they just hit you in the face with a brick, and then they hit you in the face with another brick, and then they try to kill him too, right? And he
Yeah.
wakes up, and you think he's dead. So I'm just like, I don't know what they're doing next. And then they just like they keep not pulling the rug. Like it makes sense in the context of the world, but there's so many things that happen along the way that it's hard to know what's coming next. And I think that keeps it kind of interesting, at least. I think for a lot of people, very exciting because you really don't know what's coming next. And it makes sense,
Yeah.
but there are twists that's like, oh, didn't see that coming. But did I? I don't know.
Also, I suppose we should, like, since we're already talking about Darrow so much, let's just dive into kind of characters
Oh.
in general, because that's one of our
Characters, okay.
categories.
Yeah, sure.
Real quick, I have a big note. The big note that I mentioned in the pre-show actually relates to Darrow. Let me get a drink of my water here. Delicious. Darrow is a simp.
You sucked me in, bro.
yes, yes, he is. But that's part of his motivation.
It is, and it's not bad. It's just I'm sitting
Not
there
like,
reading the
hey,
first
we've
part of the book, and
Wait,
I'm like,
boy.
Are you conflating?
He was
like,
married at like 16, dude.
He loves his wife and is willing to risk dying himself and undergoing these horrible mutations
Loves his
carry out
young wife.
his dead
He's
wife's
simp.
dream, who arguably took herself out to motivate him. That makes him a simp? Is that
So,
what we're
okay.
saying here?
Justin kind of skipped over the spoiler-free review, so I'm going to tell the audience. Justin did not like this book. He was complaining about it the whole time throughout the read. Is that fair to say? You didn't like it, right?
He liked things
Yeah,
about it.
I didn't enjoy it, but that doesn't mean like I
Well, yeah,
wouldn't be
you
like,
didn't
dude,
enjoy
this-
it. That's what I mean.
Yeah. It's not a bad book. I just there were things about it that I'm like, I don't really care about the characters because of certain story beats and just the way the characters are and the way the story kind of unfolds. Like it didn't hook me.
You didn't
because-
like it. It's No, it's fine.
Yeah, I did enjoy it.
Yeah.
But it wasn't bad. That's the thing. Like I can look at something and be like, that's trash and I didn't like it. That's not the case with this. There's plenty of good things to say about this, and me not enjoying it is because of
Your
hang up
taste.
with certain characters and things that I don't know. The motivations are a little bit didn't quite register with me, but I think
Well,
it's to say that
we
I
can
hated
tell
it or
that-
didn't enjoy it. I didn't really enjoy it, but I wouldn't say I hated it. It was just more I didn't
darker
care. It was kinda
elements, things that
apathetic.
are typically included in like grim darkish stuff, like though that's a huge no for you, right? And your enjoyment of stuff. That's
Yeah.
why I would say like, hey, never read Berserk. You're gonna hate Berserk.
You will hate
Like,
Berserk.
yeah.
And I
From
would
what
say
I've
this
heard.
is more like
Right,
grim
right.
hope or grim dark adjacent, because there is hope in this story. Even in moments will feel hopeless, but the story overall is not one of dismal pessimism. There is strong motivation and strong belief that the characters will succeed in the long run.
And that was because of the way this is. I'm like, I needed to look ahead and be like, where is this heading before I commit all these hours and stuff to see if it's like if it's just going to be
I hate
worse
that.
and
So
worse
sinful.
or better or what.
like yeah, let me get a summary of the next couple books. I'm like, oh, how could you?
How could you do it?
If you didn't love the first one and then it's like there's 5 more of these, do I want to subject myself to 5 more if I didn't love this one? I don't know.
I'm
There's
not
so many
going to
other
lie,
things that
Justin.
mess
If
it
you
up.
survive, I know the book that will lose you if you survive this one.
The fifth one?
If you
That's the
continue
fifth
with
one.
us, I know the book that you will drop because it was enough that I would consider.
Yeah, I know.
Not
I've heard
continuing.
you remark on it, and I'm like, oh boy, if it's even
I
to
don't-
the point where you
right, well-
thought it was rough to read, I'm like, ooh.
I'm
Let's
looking
get
forward to
like we said, let's get into
Let's circle
characters,
back
right?
to the
Circle back.
To
Yeah.
Daryl being a simp? Yeah, we should. He really needs to get his life in order, get like a higher purpose other than just simping over some dead woman. I'm just saying.
So
Have you
something that could
considered
kind of be a
becoming
little,
genetically superior?
Yeah, exactly.
something
Just go
that's a
talk to
little
the
bit of a
barber. You'll be fine.
skill issue sometimes with the characters, because I'm generally speaking about all the characters here. A lot of them, there's a lot that are introduced throughout, especially like when you get later into the book,
Mhm.
and not all of them have a lot of
Impact.
screen time. So it's like sometimes it gets a little bit difficult to track who is who. The names
little
are
bit,
all very distinct, I'll say. That was really well done. 'Cause sometimes you get people that their names are like too similar, and you're just like, dude, couldn't you just make that like a little bit different?
No,
Yeah.
his Pierce's his naming is strong. Wait till the later books too. Like for
Yeah.
everything, it's great.
So that was my struggle, but as far as like the characters themselves, and without the skill issue of trying to remember who's who, like they all felt very identifiable. They felt like they all had their own motivations. Even
Their
some
own
characters
voice.
you don't get for a while, right? And I kept saying like one of the things I really liked throughout this was the whole moment with Julian in this. And
Yeah,
Julian plays a huge part, but he's only a short time. Now was Julian mentioned before the main character had to kill him?
Yeah. They met.
Yeah.
They met on the shuttle going to the
Mhm.
institute.
Okay. That was me like still adjusting to the story, because especially when I haven't like been completely hooked into a story, my attention span is bad, right?
Yeah.
But when the Julian stuff happened, I was like hooked.
Holy.
Basically,
sugar
yeah.
plum.
A part of the school that he goes to, because he's trying to become a gold and his general, and he had all this surgery. His entire identity is taken away from him as of Red. He is a gold biologically now, but he kept his name. He was adamant about keeping his name. And
Mhm.
yeah, no. So like he get like part of the school is that like they make you go through a culling game, which basically they're like, hey, you're in a room with a guy, kill the other guy. There is no getting out of this. You will have to kill him. Like so, basically, a part of that, it's like, it psychologically locks in their members of blood being on their hands, right? Like so, that's a part of the initiation. It's like you have to have
And
blood on
they're-
your hands.
If I remember,
it
they're
also has
stripped
to do. It's
naked
like
during that. It's
Oh,
like
sorry.
like just animalistic, right? If I remember that right, isn't it just like you have nothing? It's literally
Yeah.
you and another dude,
Yeah,
and
they
all you
strip them
have is your
naked.
bare hands. Yeah.
Well, it's meant to bring
Throw them
them
in a
back
room.
down to the level of like basically a Red or like the lowest tier. Like there is no society. That's what the Institute is all about. And something I really, really like is that basically it's like there's a moment when Darrow, like after that, when he's sitting, I think, with Roke, the poet, and they're talking, and he realizes like this is why gold rules. Because they don't take it like they have their softness, they have their pleasures that they like to seek, and they are pleasure seeking and hedonistic in general, but they have a culling for the best in their society. And this is it, because everybody who is at like in the before that killing, that's already top like 2 to 5% of all golds already.
Yeah.
And then they kill half of them.
Which this was why not take the half and be like, you submit that dude, and they're like, hey, you still have these great genetics. You can't be one of the top dogs, but we'll go down one rung on the ladder instead of
got
killing
plenty of
half
people.
of the population.
But that,
you
no,
could
it's
have
not
20
half.
more.
It's not half
This
the
is
population.
half of
actually-
the golds that
not
are
all of
considered,
them
not
go
the
to that
population, but-
school. It's just people who get to go to the school, and it's kind of mentioned. It's like they already know who's going to be the ones that die, anyways. They specifically kind of pair people up
Yeah.
with other people.
Also,
Little
It's just to
yeah.
get
Yeah.
blood on their hands, and that's more important. Is having somebody who's had to take somebody's life.
And then
Especially, like,
obviously
potential personal bonds.
the way they set that up sometimes backfires. Like Severo, he wasn't
Mhm.
supposed to survive.
Severo
no
was
way.
best
Oh,
boy.
was Severo 99?
Severo was the last pick.
Okay,
the draft.
so
The
this
very
is the whole
last
thing, is that when they go through this, and it's so emotionally impactful when the way that it's described through the author, mentioning how the guilt he is of doing it, and he knows, he's like, Julian's dead. Like, I'm a killer. I can be a killer. Julian's
And-
kind of
yeah.
weak.
Yeah, but
And Julian's death keeps, like, that death plays such a huge part into later stories. It, like, keeps echoing. But yeah, they
Yes, it
mentioned, like, after the game, his brother, Julian's brother, is like the prime, like, the very strong guy, and he's like, oh crap, I just killed this dude's brother, and now I'm screwed. But yeah, they mentioned that the guy that was, like, basically atop the class before this calling, he died. And the 99th person makes it out. So I'm assuming the 99th person killed the top guy.
Yeah, no, Priam. He was the
Priam,
he wasn't even selected. He didn't have to go through the draft process at all. He is of such high standing socially and physically and like every capacity. Like he's like all like he's been tested since he was born, kind of thing. And he had an automatic in, and then
Yeah.
Severo took care of that.
Yeah, well, he's like, he tripped and he got his face beaten in. It's like, yeah, well, he's like, that's the first thing that the teacher came out. He's like, let this be a lesson to y'all. Like, you know, life's not a guarantee, essentially. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I
then
also
we had
like
Cassius.
I also like the sadistic kind of like whimsical kind of pleasure the game, like each of the people in charge, the person in charge of each house, and how they interact with the students. Like they don't give an F. They're like, we're gonna have fun, and you guys are gonna suffer, but we're gonna have fun.
That was one problem I had with the game. I felt like maybe I missed it. A lore dump was necessary. Of, like, just explain to me what exactly this game was, because it was kind of a little confusing at sometimes, like what the setup of the game was.
I think they kind of set it up pretty well. Basically, they're thrown out in environments that would be sort of like if you were just out at different planets and you try to figure out how to assemble your people. And the idea is just like King of the Hill, like make
Actually,
factions,
Bill
find
has something to
supplies,
say, but I got something after that. Bill, go.
Well, I was going to say this has been on my mind for a while, because it sort of goes back into the culling and the whole idea behind the game being this sort of a couple bars loosely held game of capture the flag, essentially. Not many stories with this sort of dystopian setting, at least not in my experience, are going to take the time to really set up, this is how the ruling class has managed to stay in power, and actually make it be something as reasonable as they are sadistic to themselves to ensure they stay in power, because there's a part of them that knows this is how we maintain our strength.
Yeah, we don't get to sit on our laurels forever, kind of thing. And
Mhm.
but the main purpose of this, the main purpose of the Institute, is to take the best of gold and to prepare them, basically train them as if they were the iron golds who conquered Earth in the first place. The hard men and women who, with genetic superiority, who, with their cunning, their vigor, their skill, their physicality, their genius capacity, overthrew the dictators of Earth. And so, like, they are the iron golds. And so, like, we have to restructure and rebuild society. And this is a small-time simulation of that whole process. Everybody starts off at the same place, and by the end, there's people on top and there's people down below in tiers. That's what the Institute is meant to do.
Yeah. And I didn't, that was a huge thing. I didn't expect to be a big part of this plot being the Institute. So it's just like, on paper, I think if somebody told me that, I kind of would be like, it's not that interesting. But it's like, man, the emotional dynamic stuff that's going between the characters that's happening, it just pulls you in so much. And that again with like Cassius, which was Julian's brother, which is somebody that the main characters basically teamed up with is like throughout most of the story.
Cassius calls him a brother.
Yeah, he calls him a brother, and it's just like he has to keep this lie. He can't let him figure it out. There's proctors that are managing this. They're kind of like they're all have god names, Greek god names, and they're in control of what happens, or Roman, I should say Roman names.
Yeah.
And they're in control of what happens, and they're not there for the safety of the students.
Students can die, but it's not the purpose.
It's not the purpose, but then you also have the wrinkle in this specific year of the arch governor wanting his son to win. And
that was another thing. Yeah, the arch governor's son's in play, which means favoritism's happening, which means the proctors are paid.
Which means that the whole purpose of the institute is undermined by the corruption in the system, which is part of why Darrow wants to take it down. I want to address a very common criticism of Darrow specifically. I want to hear what you guys think. This is what I've heard people say, especially in negative reviews. They'll say Darrow is a Mary Sue. Everything happens easily. He was just this minor little red, and then suddenly he's this gold who's better than everybody. And I say to that, did you read the damn book? He makes some major mistakes, and even from the very beginning when he's a red, when he drops down that drill, I did the math. That's like 300 feet. Where he's jumping and bouncing off of the wall at hot metal with like up to 20-foot pit vipers trying to burrow into his belly. He was never normal. But anyway,
there's a lot of people that say that something's a Mary Sue and they just don't understand what a Mary Sue is. You can't just say because people achieve things that they're a Mary Sue. Like, no, he definitely earned achieving things. And then with Cassius, because the proctors tell him that the main character killed his brother, he takes him out and stabs the main character, and he only survives because of somebody else simping for him. So he's not the only simp of the story, but yeah.
Well, I was going to say, the only reason that I think there would be credibility to the Mary Sue argument is just that if you take the guy who's, he's not normal, but he's normal compared to the Golds, and then you have him undergo some operations. He's got Dancer in there, and everybody's favorite Mateo, and they're teaching him how to dance, and they're teaching him how to dress and how to hold a spoon. And it's not that much later. Like, I forget how long his recovery was. I think maybe under a year, if I remember right.
It was under a year, yeah.
Yes, and now he is a gold. And to me, I'm like, that feels a little Mary Sue that they took this one kid and were able to do that. But then later on, you find out that there's more to it than that kind of removes that argument from the table.
He wasn't the first success where they did this, but like in the very beginning, they mentioned that they've had like 95 attempts and they've all failed up until now. You need a very strong person and a very good carver. And I love what Mickey says about that. He's like, they've asked you to make you a gold, like one of those highbrows that I was in the clubs. I don't want to make you a gold. I want to make you a god of war.
Right. Now, one of my favorite characters, because we find out that he's not the only red that's in the game. Which was another twist. I will say the surgery part, though, that kind of that was a little quick. And that transition, I think, happened a little bit quick. But I don't know.
I think that has to do a little bit with page count, but that's maybe,
Yeah. But Titus. So Titus is just a monstrous giant gold that's just pillaging. Brutal. And he's a monster. And they're like, well, crap, we need to do something about this guy. He's kind of on another team separate from them. And he does some brutal things, and it's just like, wow, these golds are messed up. But spoiler alert, turns out because he says little things that he said, Darrow is able to decipher. He's like, oh crap, he's a red.
He's the other red, the one who is also successful. Yeah, and that hits like a gut punch because he became what he is, this something that his wife wouldn't recognize, which was his fear in the first place. He's become, and he's putting to death another red who was also.
Well, he realizes I can't let this guy live because he's going to screw up the overall mission because he just wants to kill. That's why he's so brutal, because he's like, I just want to kill golds.
If he reveals me, then my wife died for nothing. all my
Right.
suffering for nothing, and the hope of my people dies. That's what. Yeah. Anyway, Bill, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say that's one of the best things about the story. You see not only Darrow's successes in eventually getting to where he is by the end of the book, but you also see how things could have gone wrong with by seeing Titus and just seeing the lengths and the brutal atrocities he was committing to these to those poor girls in the tower. That's
Yep.
Because he had nothing but revenge. That's why EO says live for more, because he needs to live for more than just the revenge on the gold. And Justin, I know you hate EO. It's okay.
I don't hate EO. I'm just conflicted with her motivations. In terms of characters, though, I think that this book does a really, I mean, would it be fair to say an expert job setting up characters where, especially with the code names and all that, whenever you get the reveals of how the pieces are intertwined and how the things are interwoven, it's like, oh crap. So you get that reveal of who the person is because they build an idea in your mind of who the character is. And then once you find out more about them, you're like, oh no, this makes everything worse now. It's like, oh no, I can't, this person that I've been trusting, I can't trust them now because of this association. Does this person know my secret? Do I need to worry about them? And there's like, they did a really good job with those moving pieces. And I equated it to, because I'm a jerk, the pulling the Scooby-Doo, like, who this is a guy really? And they pull the mask off. But it has a ton of moments like that where every time you think you know who a character is, something like there's a dynamic shift in like 2 pages whenever there's some kind of information reveal that you did not have. And then you're like, you kidding me?
Yeah. Also, can we talk about like this book? Like it has some people's call it a slow setup, but this book when it starts going, this book moves.
Bro,
fast.
Well, it's just so much tension. There's so much because it's not like you're like, oh, he has to worry about his own companions because they're gold, they're selfish, they might betray me. Also, one of them, I killed his brother, and he doesn't know. He trusts me now, but that could end.
Also, the proctors, the people in charge of this whole thing, are actively trying to kill me.
Right, the proctors are another issue. There's so many things going on where you're like, wow, one misstep and you're fucked. And that does happen to him a few times where he like barely is able to cling on to life because he messed up. Like there's huge stakes for messing up.
Like people lose body parts. Now in this advanced society, you can get mechanical or even biological replacements. So it's not like the end all be all, but like there are consequences. Like Severo loses an eye. And also with Darrow being a Mary Sue, I've never seen a Mary Sue in a story crying because he got stabbed in the belly and he's slowly bleeding to death in the snow. I've never seen a Mary Sue have that happen.
Yeah. Well, so Severo, you mentioned like the discovery, like Severo may have picked up from the recordings that Darrow said bloody hell, which is something that only Reds say. Bloody damn, yeah. And he's like, I deleted it. He's like, there was nothing, or he's like, he says that he didn't see anything, but he's like, oh shit, does Severo know something?
Does Severo know something? Yeah.
And what does that mean? Because, is Severo red? I don't know. I'm starting to suspect, I'm like, everyone's a red now. They're actually all reds.
Well, what I'll say, not a spoiler, not that you don't just have reds everywhere. It's not like that.
No, I don't think so. Yeah.
Dude, I'm so excited for book 2. Like, I'll explain this real quick. I picked up book 1. I read it so fast. I loved it. And I read a sample chapter of book 2 at the end of book 1. And I bought that book at like 4 hours after I finished the first one. I read that book without sleep for 2 or 3 days. And then I did not pick up book 3 for 2 months.
Does not compute. All right. What were we going to say?
I'll tell you why, but go ahead.
I would like to point out
you were going to say something.
Oh, I forget. I started listening to him.
Oh, sorry.
So
we have. I think we can talk about these two characters together. Because Roke is a small character. There's not much to mention about him. As a big character.
He's really unusual for gold. Really unusual for gold.
Right. So you have Mustang, who's like the girl who saves him, who's from a different house, and nurses him back to health, and he starts to kind of fall in love with, even though he's definitely not over his wife. And also, this is a gold. Is that not a betrayal to your person?
And then the
then
reveal at the end too is wild, dude.
yeah,
I was
because the
about
other
it, I'm
character
like,
we're gonna mention,
seriously? Like, come on.
the Jackal, right? So the Jackal is a character that they keep talking about. The governor's son, the arch governor's son, and he's up in the north, and he's got all the proctors that are helping him, and you kind of expect him to be this like prissy kind of guy who's just spoiled and everything like that. But no, this guy's a fucking competitor.
Yeah, he's nuts.
And he's scary.
You think he's prissy until he cuts his hand off?
Oh my god, yeah.
Oh,
so
like
like
they're expected he would be weak in the way that most
Yeah.
guilds are, like mentally, and the Jackal is not that guy at all.
yeah, I hate that nickname. It's so unregal. Which is just like the perfect description of him, because yeah, he's
it's
like
a perfect. He aged fellow
There-
students, dude.
yeah, he ate a bunch of people. He's done some messed up things. Daryl, because basically he pretends to be from a different house when they're taken over by Daryl and Daryl's like people. But like Daryl picks up on it because his ring doesn't match or whatever, and then he shoves a knife into the dude's hand and like hammers it to the table, and he's like, the Jackal's stuck, and then all of a sudden after like 3 seconds of like squealing in pain, he just calms himself and just sits down and is like, so you figured out who I am.
Dude, that was just
Dude,
unnerving.
that whole scene is wild.
Yeah.
It's two people sitting, and I could not imagine there being more tension.
Yeah. And so it's just Darrow told Mustang to get out of the room. And basically, to kind of like undermine the Jackal, Darrow throws him a knife. He's like, all right, Jackals will bite their own leg if they need to escape. So here's a knife. Cut your hand off if you want to be free. And he's like in a monologue. He's like, he can't do it. He's too weak. I checkmate. I got him. And then he takes a knife and starts no problem.
Sawing down, cracking the bones, and
Yep.
Yeah,
It wasn't an issue at all. And then Darrow's kind of like, he's really gonna do it. Fuck.
and he's
Well,
like,
this guy
I
calculated.
cannot let him leave, but I also can't look like a bitch.
Yeah,
So
because he
this guy
said,
took
I'll
his
free you.
calculated, but man, am I bad at math.
Yeah, he said he promised him he'd free him if he cut his hand off. If he doesn't free him, like, what's that going to say to his troops? Because a big aspect of this book is the leadership and how you are, you're reflective to people. Like, if you appear weak or unhonorable or something like that. Like, there's a moment with Cassius and Titus, because he's like, okay, Titus has to die, and he's like, I'm going to kill him, but then Cassius is like, Cassius got embarrassed bad and lost his ability to lead because he got peed on by a bunch of people.
Pissed on by a crowd of people.
Right. So he's
yeah.
like, well, nobody's going to follow this guy. And Cassius is like, you got to let me kill Titus. Like, I have to do it. And plus, Cassius thinks that Titus killed his brother, but he didn't.
It wasn't justice. It was revenge. And that Idero does learn that lesson. But yeah, he is a lot more, spoiler alert, there are a lot more lessons to learn before this story is over.
Well, yeah, Darrow says like, hey, he's like, fine, Cassius, you can duel him, and then it's like, yeah, Titus is a brute, but Cassius is a trained dueler. Like it's one. Cassius does kill Titus, but the people under Darrow are kind of like that was that wasn't
undermining moment.
Yeah, what was it? That wasn't like justice. Yeah, that wasn't justice. He's
Well,
like,
then
you
they
like
named his
you should have
horse,
killed him.
What was
Well,
that, Bill?
I was saying, after the execution, they decided to name his horse, give his horse that nickname that was essentially his own people mocking him for what he did.
Mm-hmm.
Which is really where you start to see the cracks in Darrow's leadership.
And
The major
that-
cracks
yeah, go ahead.
going into the next part of the book where everything just sort of falls apart with Cassius.
Well, then that leads into the character of Mustang too, because Mustang, in a very weird, twisted way of the story, it like the way that they lead going forward, because it is a team. It takes both of them. It takes his passion, his charisma, his capability, and her intelligence, her perspective. It takes both of them, and in a weird way, he reminds She reminds Darrow of Eo's dream in a very weird and twisted way, given the fact that she's the daughter of the man that ordered her execution, which is pretty. Oh yeah, here at the end,
spoiler.
when you find out who Mustang is, and did you guys think that she was going to betray him? Did you think that's where the story was going at that last?
I wasn't sure. I mean, well, I did
No.
think that she was gonna like betray him up until like just because it was like I thought it was she might still have loyalty for her leader. Like this could be like some big trap or whatever. I didn't think that it was gonna be a twist that she's the arch governor's daughter and she's the twin sister to the Jackal. Which also we should mention the arch governor is the one that that put the order to execute Darrow's wife.
And then Darrow swears allegiance to him at the end of this book. What a wild way for that! Like that. This plot messes you up. Wait for book 2 and 3, dude. You will not believe things that happen.
Yeah. So like he ends the book and he's like kind of in love with the daughter to his sworn enemy. He's also in the leadership. That monologue he gives the audience talking about how he's gonna take the revenge on the arch governor. It's just oh man, some of the best writing. Which
so solid.
I guess like I mean we talked about the characters enough. We kind of cover plot as well in this. Let's talk about the prose. You want to talk about
curious what you guys think. I'll go first just because I've read this book quite a few times. His prose is good because that ties into naming and the way and like world building and such, and the way he paces it. His writing tightens up a lot more and becomes much better in later books. And I really enjoy his prose, but the first person perspective isn't for everyone, and it's a testament to how good this book is that I enjoyed in this book because it's not my preferred perspective. But I really like. I think his prose is still fast and moves well and all of that. But I like the way the slightly poetic and brutal way he describes things. Anyway, what do you guys think?
Yeah, I agree. I and the Britishness in his because he's a British dude, and that comes through in his writing with a lot of the way the characters talk
He's a
and their
British
word
dude?
choice.
I thought he was American.
Is he?
I'm pretty sure
Is he
he's American.
I thought I read somewhere he was British.
He likes Europe,
and I'm pretty sure he has
Um,
heritage, like because there's a whole Irish theme to this.
There's a lot of
that's
Irish,
funny.
yeah.
Well, not
Well,
only
Irish.
that,
I mean,
speech that the
the UK will yell at me, but I mean, you guys are like, it's like, I don't know, Pennsylvania, New Jersey. Like you're different, but you're kind of in the same.
Oh my God, you can't say the Irish and the English are the same.
I didn't. I was just saying it's not, anyway, the language, the way they talk, some of the slang and stuff. There's
The
absolutely
English,
carryover.
the
That's all
Irish.
I'm saying.
For hundreds of years. Anyway.
I'm just saying the word choice. There's some slang and some word choice carryover between those that plays through. I didn't know he was American. I read this somewhere he's British, and I was like,
all white people are the same. We got it, Justin.
How you read between the lines. But to your point, I did like that the way he wrote. It wasn't overly dense and poetic. There's some books where
it's a lot.
I don't know. They just.
It's a lot.
I feel like they're writing it like and then Bats hits the fart noise, and they're just like, oh, and the petals on the flower with the veins, and then it's like, and it's just way too much, way too long, and he doesn't do that. I feel like that's part of the reason why the pacing in this book is so good is because he gives you what you need.
There's a touch of that,
he
but
hits ya.
he's not smelling his own stuff.
Yeah.
I never felt like it got bogged down by the
Right.
let's get really purple up in here kind of thing.
Yeah. Bill, how'd you feel about the prose?
I enjoyed it. Number of things here. The pros and knowing how or hearing Kahuna's thing about it being 2 months from first word to publication. Yeah, it's the pros and getting that little tidbit from Kahuna that's got me sitting here thinking I'm inadequate with my own stuff.
Yeah, right.
But
Yeah, I think the pros were more than serviceable. I think they're pretty much just where I wanted to be. And like Kahuna is a fan of some books where I'm like, that's way too flowery for me. Which that's all about taste. So I'm like, for me, this is where I wanted to be. I guess it could get a little bit better potentially, but I'm like, I don't need it to be. It's got enough those poetic lines, those hurt that hit strongly when they need to, and it's written plainly enough to not try to like confuse the crap out of you. And annoy you that like, can you get off the thesaurus, dude? Which is sometimes happens. But yeah, all right.
And
I mean,
with the
sorry
prose,
about-
I think since we've mentioned pace already, it's a relatively short book compared to the others. And I'm
Is it
looking at
really?
the others right now. And there's just a lot that you cover in terms of world building, character, like just a whole ton that gets covered in just this first book in those 400 something pages.
well, it's probably smart for when you're trying to get people into a series. Like, hit them with the short one, and then, you know. But yeah,
Hit them with
okay.
the short
She
one
said.
the best you can.
Let's go to world building. Fair.
I thought there was a lot of cool elements with that. I mean, even early on with the miners and their world, and that was one of the big reveals near the beginning, is that you're so caught up in their life and going into the depths and the mining, and if you get caught, you gotta, what was it, hack? Isn't there something in the early part where you might have to hack your own body apart,
Yeah.
and they're like almost melting?
Scythe,
and then there's and then there's the creatures that want to put worms in your belly, and it's just hot and sweaty and gross. They're mining the helium for the terraforming and all of this. And then it's revealed not too far after that like there's this whole other world beyond their world. And even in that
Oh
sense,
yeah, we
there's
never
a-
even talked about that being a plot twist.
Yeah,
The
and
fact-
then
It's,
you
it's
get
such
the-
an early plot twist. That's why. Yeah.
right, yeah.
Yeah, and you get the reveal there, and even the ability, like, they can just carve people, like, you can just make yourself something else. That's why I made the joke in the chat earlier. I'm like, so what can Dancer do if you give him, like, a really good gold, and you carve a gold up, and make, like, a double gold, get, like, a platinum or something, whatever.
Gold is very close to the
Mer.
peak of physical perfection. They
Yeah.
don't because they do try to make them better, but they don't get that much better. I want to specify something a little bit real quick too. The colors, people say, "Oh, so reds like golds, like what does that mean?" It means that their sigil is the color and the shape that of their color that represents their color, and their eyes are that color. But that has not it has nothing to do with their skin or their hair or anything else. All of that is
really?
just fluff.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
didn't hear
they're-
anything
The
about
whole
that color.
time I thought their skin was different.
No,
Well, I
they're-
was thinking their hair was different too. I'm picturing all the reds as gingers.
I just
I
assumed
just
they were all
assumed they
no,
were
different.
gingers.
there
All
are
the golds
dark, there are
hidden
dark
underneath.
skinned reds. They have the red eyes but they're dark skinned reds, and like you see that.
Well, they
like,
call them dark reds. So I'm just thinking they're a darker shade of red.
More of a burgundy, Merlot, really.
and
I
and
don't like this as much now, actually. I kind of like that they had different colored skin.
also, spoiler: the obsidians mostly white, very white. You wouldn't believe how white.
Whitewashing. Damn it.
Oh,
No,
dude,
I think
you know,
probably I'll say like, too similar to Hunger Games, the world building. But
I think it makes a lot more sense than Hunger Games. Like there's
It
an extra
does.
explanation. Like, why are the golds in charge? Oh, this is why. It's like why is Panem in charge?
Reasons.
Because
just is. Yeah.
it just is, yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh, I got
No,
a question
definitely.
for you, and this ties into the world building too, because you said the song, which I was listening to the audiobook, and the song just kept going, and I was just like, and apparently the song was important that she sings, that gets everybody in trouble. I still am like, why did she sing it? She could have just not. Like, that could have. Anyways, all right. The golds, are the golds bad? Like, are they evil?
That's a nuanced question with a nuanced answer. Some definitely are, but it's
Right.
like
Let's circle
Yeah.
back to that.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
like,
there's
in the world building.
let's circle back after a couple books.
Because I don't know if there's enough to reveal. Because if it's just like, no, might makes right. It's evolution. The top, the top rules. Because
That's-
just
but then,
society.
but then
the
there's
thought
Mustang,
that- of
then
the-
there's
of the
Mustang
Reds.
and Rogue as
To
well.
the-
Like golds are both the best and the worst of society.
To the Reds, the golds are just objectively evil.
Right,
and
but
part of the adventure that this character is going through is kind of like come to the terms that that's not true.
Yeah.
That there's nuance to this, and that kind of is having that gray sucks. Like, it almost should be better if they were all evil.
that's what I'm
And
trying to
they're-
figure out. Like,
and they're
where
not,
does their
yeah.
sense of morality come from? Because without any guiding principles to determine your morality, why not just be in charge of everyone? Like that's not even evil at that point. It's just like,
And
oh,
they also
why
that they
wouldn't
do
you?
have guiding principles, which is the
That's what
pyramid of the society, which is it's like they do rule, but they are also in many ways are most capable of it. They're smarter. They're literally smarter. They're literally stronger. They're literally faster. They yeah. But and this is explored much more in other books as well. This book you kind of touch the bare baby back surface of it, but in later books it gets much deeper into that
Because
whole discussion, because like you have evil people like Augustus and the Jackal, but then even in the same family you have Virginia or Mustang, and then you have people like Rogue. And in many ways, Cassius, like even in this book, he talks about it, like he and Darrow become enemies, but Cassius in many ways is not a bad guy when compared to the rest of his race. Like he's not, he's bombastic and he's proud, and he is willing to like put that before other people, but he's not evil in the tradition.
Yeah, at the end, he's not willing to let go of his hate for the main character, even though it's kind of like the main character killed his brother because he had no choice. But
It was literally kill or
Cassius will have his revenge. Yeah, no, so it's like, I mean, like, there's just so many of these other deeper things that are going on with the story. Sorry, what?
Shoot. Hold on,
Are
guys.
you okay?
Sorry. There's some the grandparents of my kids are not my parents, my ex's parents are dropping them off early. I need to go right now. I hate to do this. I wanted to say
all good,
longer.
dude.
Yeah, we're probably
20
wrapping up real
minutes
quick,
going.
anyways.
Yeah.
Okay. Can I give my rating real quick before I go?
Yeah, give your rating. Yeah.
When compared to other books, I would put this book at like a 9.5 or 9.25. Compared to other books in this series, this is the lowest ranked out of all of them.
Wow.
I really deeply enjoy it. This book becomes better and worse once you read the others. The other books are written so well that the writing quality is so much better in those other books. But then there are things you appreciate about what happened in this book later because of the story. And that's what I'll say. But I adore this book. I'm ecstatically excited. I am full mast ready for book 2. That's what. Yeah. But thank you guys for being here and talking about it. I'm excited to see what you guys say after I leave. But peace out, guys. I gotta get going. Gotta take care of my kiddos.
All right, dude. Have a good one. See you Tuesday.
Yeah, no. So I'll say for the world building, the most important part is that it is serviceable to the plot. Like the world building played so heavily into the plot, like every aspect of it. So it was really good, along with us. And I'll say a little bit to my feelings on the book overall. I'm kind of right there with Kahuna. I think like some things could have been done a little bit better. Like I had some of the issues with some of the pacing. Like some of the parts, like I mentioned earlier, like it felt like they jumped to a different scene without setting up the scene well, and it kind of took me a second to kind of catch on what was going on. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I thought that the book dragged a little bit towards the end. Like the games, you start off and you get the background, then they get into the games, and it's like, I don't know, probably 4/5 of the book is the games. And I was sort of
I
ready
felt like
to
half
be
of the
over
book was.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's more like the entire second half is the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, like 9/10 of the book was the games. 19/20, 29/30. You see what I'm getting at? The games just went on and they went on and they went on, and I felt like they dragged by the end. I was just ready.
I was fine, and then also I felt like it ended almost like quickly at the end. Not that was bad, just but they had the whole thing with the Proctor revolution. Like they overtook the Proctors and they kind of ended the game short, which I was happy with.
I was honestly expecting it to end with a showdown between Darrow and the Jackal, but then it didn't, and it's like, oh, okay, so we're just gonna embarrass all the Proctors. Okay, I'm okay with this, but
yeah, I don't know. I felt like a duel or a showdown with the Jackal. Like I felt like that wouldn't have been as satisfying as basically enter. Like the Jackal was mentioned, but the Jackal really became a piece on the board when they had the meeting. And it's like, oh, for all these upcoming books, the Jackal is a freaking like a bishop or something now that's just been put on the chessboard. So crap, we already had all these other issues, but now we got this other like this serious crazy issue that's going to be really bad for us. So that's kind of how I really appreciated the ending, because it's like the board just got set up by the end of this book, and you're like, oh, this game is way more difficult than I thought it was originally. Because now you got Cassius, who's like a part of the different house that he's the opposite house that he's mentoring under, but the house he's mentoring under is his enemy. Also, but Cassius wants to kill him, so that's the whole thing. You got the Jackal that wants to kill him. He's dating a girl that, who knows, maybe when she like, what happens if they start finding out if he's red? Like, what's going on? Yeah, that's kind of what I liked about that.
Yeah, I think at the beginning of all this, I was talking about the Amazon score being a 4.6 out of 5, and that's, I think, pretty close to about what you would rate it, what Kahuna would rate it. And I said then, I think that score is fair. I understand why people would give it that.
Yeah.
For me personally, just because of what the story is about, it's like, it's well written, it's well constructed, it's got interweaving of characters and twists and turns, and they're setting it up and all that. But if you don't enjoy stories that have this kind of like, yeah, it's a bunch of 16-year-olds that gotta take care of each other, and that's like the heart of it, and this guy's wife is gonna get taken out. If you're not into that stuff, if you like books more like, or stories more like a Hobbit, where it's like a band of guys that are buddies and they gotta go out and they gotta do the right thing to save their people or whatever, and it's like a journey with high fives and monsters, but things are gonna work out. If that's more your speed, not to say that you can't enjoy both, but if you are kind of off put by these sorts of stories, for me personally, I'd give it like a 2-ish out of 5 in terms of my enjoyment of it. I don't really have any interest in going into the next books, but for people that are like, you, Evely, are an insane person, your taste is garbage, I'm like, I understand why people say that, but my opinion is my opinion. I'm allowed to have it, so there it is.
Yeah, well, I mean, you've mentioned plenty of times that you want things to be happy, which is your preference. Which things are not happy.
Some like trials, but yeah, like a guy can take an arrow to the knee or lose an arm or something, but it just starts off heavy and then it just keeps hitting. It's like,
yeah, I love it. I love that stuff.
A lot of people do, but
yeah, I think we kind of covered emotional impact. Like I felt like the emotional impact was super strong. I thought this was a very thought-provoking book as well. I thought it was pretty strong in that element as well. Like it like we keep on saying, with the nuances that happen between the struggles of the Reds and the Golds, and all these characters that keep going on, and what it says about leadership. Like you can learn about leading people from a pretty good example from the main character and what he does right and what he does wrong in this.
Yeah, I think they do a good job tapping into, and even with the symbolism, with the Greek or the Roman gods and all that tied into it, there are a ton of different themes and running, I guess, not to use the same word again, running symbolism that you could discuss different sections of this book at length, not only in regard of the world itself, but then as it relates to ours and our histories and that. And apparently, as you get deeper into the series, from what Kahuna said, it gets even more like complex. So I think that there's a lot with this book in that regard, in terms of having those kinds of conversations that go beyond the book. So, I mean, tip of the cap in that regard, because a lot of books, you read them and they do what they do, but that's sort of the end of the conversation. I think it's the mark of a good writer whenever you can leave and say, oh, what about this? Even that question I had, like, what if you carve a gold? Like, to me, that's on the table. That's just like, that's good writing.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, Bill, well, what are your ending thoughts on this? I think we'll wrap this up now.
Well, real quick, regarding the ending, when Kahuna asked us if we thought Mustang was going to betray Darrow, I was a little 50-50 going into that. But as I thought more about it, there's something different about her.
Right.
And that's the thing I really love, is that this book treats even the quote-unquote villains as people.
Yeah, no, because he sends Mustang to go after the Jackal before he finds out that he's the sister.
That he's the sister. Whoa.
That she is the sister. Well, you know what I mean.
That's book 2. It's another twist. He goes back to
it's crazy what they can do with that surgery, man.
Yeah,
but yeah, no. I mean, yeah, it is one of those things where it's like, yeah, like even though that like going and seizing the castle in the first place, like they do, like, well, they're going at the jackal at some point. It's kind of like, what would be the point of nursing him to this point in order to then just betray him at the end, basically? Like, what would be the point of that? You could say because she thought that he'd be a valuable piece that's going to pay off, that she's manipulating him the whole time. But who says that she's not going to be manipulating him in later
that's
into
where
the
I'm
stories?
And
I'm not. I don't trust her now. But at the end of the book, I was like, I don't think she's going to turn on him at this moment. But I don't think that means that
yeah, it's
she
definitely on
won't
the
in like a book
table.
and a half or something, or 3 books or 5 or however many it is.
It's on the table. You never know how people are going to
Yes,
react when they find out he's
exactly.
really a red. But even from the beginning, when she first commented on what Titus was doing to his slave girls, there's something about her morality and what is driving her
Yeah.
that when I got to that part, I was fairly confident that she wasn't going to betray him, but it there were a
I
lot
think
of
betrayal's
concerns along the way.
a strong possibility in the future, especially because it's like, okay, I could be top of the class. What does that mean though? Like, because like they have this whole thing about being like top of the class, and this is the whole thing that I really appreciated because it was reminiscent of being in the Marine Corps. In boot camp, the top of the platoon is the guide. Whoever's the guide, you can get like promotions out of boot, like just from boot camp. This whole thing everybody strives for. Nobody gives a single flying fuck who the hell the guide was the second you step out of boot camp. But when you're in boot camp, it's the most important thing, like position that you could possibly hold, and has so much meaning. But it's funny. It's like completely opposite. If you like, it's actually cringe if you try to mention that, right? Because I'm like, I don't care why even bring that up. So it's very similar to this story where it's like, yeah, nobody cares that you won top of your class, the primus or whatever they call it. Once you're out of the class, it helps you get your positions, but like nobody really cares that once it's done, right? So what if you make an emotional connection with the person that's top that has the most potential to really soar in the future, while also, graduating in a top position, and then you just marry that person, right? You can be that person's wife, and then hold status in that, and then maybe manipulate him to do your will. That's a possibility.
Yeah, I also would be surprised if she isn't the one that betrays him, but he betrays her. We've already seen him betray who he is in this book. So he's going to continue undergoing trials and whatever else, and who knows what else is going to come his way. It wouldn't surprise me if she is actually like committed or whatever. And I don't know. It's like with these this story stuff, you have no idea which way it's going to go, which keeps it exciting and interesting, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's him, not her.
Yeah, with Kahuna mentioning that this is his favorite book, I get it. I totally get it reading this one. He says book 2 is going to be is his favorite. Now I'm kind of like, expectations are super high for this, for my own doing of reading this. So we'll see. But I totally understand why he holds this book up in such a high regard. Now from reading it, it makes sense to me.
It's like, how are they gonna one up this? In book 2, is Jackal can cut off his own hand and his own foot? Like, how do you scale to make it like more crazy? And then it turns out that not Magnus, I want to call her Magnus, Mustang is also not. She's actually not just his twin, but they're triplets, and from the cells that were taken from somebody else, and a dancer's her uncle or something. It's gonna be like. Or Darrow's uncle is actually a former gold that had the surgery to become a red. Like, who knows? Man?
There's a reason why your genes were so good. You actually come from gold bloodline.
Would it surprise you if the story went that way, though? Would it surprise you at all? It wouldn't surprise me. They need
some of the twists
spies to infiltrate the Reds. I don't know.
Yeah, some of the twists are pretty jarring. If you were just be like, yeah, it's her. She's the twin. That's the big reveal. It's a twin. It's like kind of tropey, but I'm like, it hits you so much with what that possibilities mean at that moment, with the already what the fuck moment we just went through. That's why I like it. yeah, I'm excited for the second book. Any closing thoughts, Justin?
I think we've said quite a bit about it, and I think if you haven't read it, it's worth picking up and reading if it sounds interesting at all and drawing your own conclusions. I think that I'm probably in the very slim minority of people that read it and wasn't really loving it, even though a lot of aspects of it are definitely praiseworthy. So I think if any of this sounds appealing at all, pick it up. I don't think you'll be disappointed.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like I'm probably gonna say like a 4.5, but that's only to like leave room for improvement. I do think that there were some, like I mentioned with the pacing, I think that there were some faults there. Um, I didn't like, even though I don't think it's a bad thing, I just wasn't a big fan of how much it reminded me of Hunger Games. It just was like a slap in the face. To like, it just kept slapping me in the face with how obvious the comparisons were. Right, so that kind of take me out a little bit. But the criticisms are minor, and this is like the kind of book that I'm like, man, this is what I would want to write. Like I want to write stuff with this compelling of twist and characters and stuff. So yeah, I think guys, if you made it this far, I should have already mentioned, please subscribe, and if like hit the like button. I mean, if you're gonna hit the like button, you might as well also subscribe because it's not like it matters for the algorithm anyways. But we always really appreciate listening this far. And as you mentioned, if you want to join our book club, just read along so you can be more informed by the time we do this show. Go ahead and join our Discord so you can follow. And also you can pop up on the show and talk about it with us as well if you want. And also don't forget about our Substack. Our Substack, it's pinned to the comments here. And if you're watching this later, it's in the description. But yeah, thank you. Thank you for sticking along. And guys, anything else you want to say?
I guess we'll get whoever's reading the next one. When are we thinking like a deadline? Maybe early March, something like that. Give people about a month to get through it.
We'll probably by next month. By next month, we'll have it done. So
yeah.
Probably
so if you need to catch
that.
up, if you're just seeing this and you're thinking, oh, I would like to read the next one, that gives you a fair amount of time to get through both books. And they're available as well. You can get them in audiobook if you're a commuter and things like that on Audible and Amazon. And there's options there too. If you're like me and put it in 1.5 at times.
All right. Have a good one, everybody.
Pax out Telemanes.
Neglect my own stuff just to get through the book in a week.